So last September, if you will recall, Premier François Legault announced that Quebec would be transformed into a global player in the EV supply chain, all thanks to the province's investment in the $7 billion Northvolt project, what Legault promoted as the greenest electric battery factory in the world. Now, despite this, it seems that the project has made many Quebecers unhappy, especially environmentalists, with one environmental group now suing Quebec because of the way the government has allowed the project to go ahead without respecting the laws put in place by society. That's what they say on the matter. Let's now go to Marc Bishai, a lawyer with the group that is suing Quebec, the CQDE, that's the Quebec Centre for Environmental Rights. Marc, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, tell us in a nutshell here, what is the problem with how Quebec has gone forward with the Northvolt plant?
Right. To be clear, our organization, the Quebec Environmental Law Centre, is not opposed to this or other projects. That's not what we do. But we are critical of the government's handling of the project. There are many issues. One of them, the main one, I would say so far, has been transparency. The public should have more transparency on this project and many other projects of a similar nature, but right now we're getting information piecemeal. It takes time. It's often redacted. There is a public registry of environmental information directly online, which has been mandated in the law for over 6 years now, but is still not online. So citizens must go through access to information processes. It can take weeks. And in the meantime, in the case of the Northvolt project, the work is already well underway on the site. So citizens and environmental groups and even journalists are all saying whether Northvolt is a good project or not, this way of doing things is not right.
So, we've heard some members of the government, and I'm thinking mostly of Pierre Fitzgibbon on this front, as he's minister of so many things, economy and energy. And he's sort of intimated that if we didn't do things in a faster fashion and didn't speed up certain aspects, Northvolt would have done this plant somewhere else, and there was a sense of urgency in that respect. How much does that matter?
Well, we can appreciate that speed is important, and that's fine. But like many citizens and many organizations, the Quebec Environmental Law Centre has simply been asking to follow the same rules that we always follow for big industrial projects, which is to submit it to an independent environmental assessment of the whole project by the BAP, which is Quebec's well-respected independent review board. This ensures meaningful public participation. We get a clear picture of all the project's impacts, including the permanent ones, both positive and negative. And it's still possible legally for the company or the government to go down that route, but so far they've refused to do so. So we're really just asking for the usual checks and balances that we already have in place to be followed for this project.
So what do you hope is the outcome of the lawsuit? You want those checks and balances, but are you okay if the project goes through?
Well, ultimately, yes. Whether the project goes through is not really, as I say, our organization's purview. Mm-hmm. What we're looking at, of course, is protecting the environment, protecting biodiversity. Those are very much at the heart of our mission. And so it's really about the way that this project has been authorized. That's what's at stake. This is yet another case of destroy now and protect later without knowing exactly where or how that protection is going to occur off-site. The minister's decision to grant the authorization is, in our opinion, based on insufficient information. The applicable scientific standards seem to have been modified for this specific project, which is especially worrisome. And more generally, we're asking the courts to decide whether the regulatory thresholds for an environmental assessment were modified illegally without proper consultation. So these are serious issues, in our opinion, that the courts should look into.
Marc, is this unique from other types of projects that have happened in Quebec? Like, do you find this is a trend of the current government whenever they do a project, or does the Northvolt project stand alone in the concerns you have?
Well, we've seen regulatory changes in the past and even legislative amendments in the past to hurry things along, to hurry projects along. We're okay with adding more speed and more efficiency, that's fine, but we should make sure that we're not sacrificing, careful scientific review and making sure that projects are sufficiently respectful of both the environment and the population. So really, this is particularly, in our opinion, egregious case of bending rules and, in our opinion, making this project suffer ultimately because that's one of the main outcomes of an independent environmental assessment. We get public participation, more social license, and we get more transparency. And so more people are able to be on board or to, at the very least, understand what it is we're talking about here, all the impacts of the project. And so far, that hasn't been the case sufficiently, in our opinion.
With Marc Bishai, a lawyer with the group that is suing Quebec over the Northvolt project. Marc, the government will say, if you what I've heard them say is, if you look at North America, Quebec has the most robust and stringent standards to begin with, and that it's kind of unfair to keep them at this high level when, if you look at other places in North America, they don't come close to some of the regulatory hurdles in Quebec. Do you buy that argument?
Well, wouldn't it make sense to look at it the other way around, that other jurisdictions should follow our example rather than us diluting our rules? I mean, if we're trying to solve the climate crisis, if we're trying to solve the biodiversity loss crisis, we have to make sure that the systems we put in place are going to be adequately able to respond to these big global issues. And to do that, we can't simply deregulate constantly and allow, all kinds of impacts on the environment and on biodiversity to continue the way that they have been so far. We really need to, on the contrary, reinforce the rules that we have in place rather than go in the other direction.
How much is it important to look at big picture, let's say? And the reason I ask that question is, so, I'm looking at your case here, and I am seeing the things that you're mentioning and how perhaps the province has gone against its own rules. And then when I look at big picture, I say, I don't know if we want the alternative where the plant doesn't happen here, it goes somewhere else, or it never happens at all. Big picture environmental wise, right? The electrification of transport is a big deal long term for the environment. How do you see it?
Well, absolutely, it is a big deal, and we're for a just transition, both an energy transition, ecological transition. But again, how are those transitions going to happen? Are they going to happen democratically? Are people going to be involved, and are all stakeholders going to participate actively, which I think are keys to success in this transition? Or are we going to have an approach that is a little too top-down and opaque, which ultimately could undermine that very transition? So we really want to make sure that we're looking at the big picture in the long run as well, and make sure that this is going to be done in a way that's sustainable in every sense of the word, meaning that it's going to be able to continue for years and decades to come.
Marc, is there anything that that we didn't talk about so far that I haven't asked you about that you think is important here?
Well, I think that covers pretty much everything. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Great. I'd love to hear that at the end of the interview as well. Marc, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is Marc Bishai, a lawyer with the group suing the Quebec government over the Northvolt plant.